So after a somewhat disappointing season, or at least a disappointing playoff exit, losing in 5 games to the Anaheim Ducks, we move forward as we begin Season 5. But first, it's the draft, and the question is, can the Buffalo Sabres, or did the Buffalo Sabres, win the lottery? They finished in 4th. Where will our pick be? And unfortunately, we have fallen back to 5th. So a little bit disappointing there, because we know Montreal and Boston both had some decent playoff success. So we have the 5th pick, the 17th from Boston, and of course way back here at 30th because of the Montreal Canadiens. Now, I know a lot of you prefer me to go in-depth with the draft, but tell me if you've heard this before. We had a lot of players show up in the list who did not have completed information, so this draft was more of the same. Not to say we completely struck out on every pick like last year's draft. As you can see, our first pick, 5th overall, of course the Buffalo pick, was Karpatsev, who ended up being elite potential despite being shown as top 6 in the listing. Our second pick, 17th overall from Boston, was a top 6 forward, Kavanov. So 2 Russians so far. We'll see what they can become. And our third pick was a Swede. It is Carlson, a top 9 player. So an elite, a top 6, and a top 9 with those 3 first-round picks. In the second round, 6th pick, we strike out a little bit low top 9 potential with Halpern, but you never know if he can grow into a top 6. With the 16th and 17th picks in the second round, we take back-to-back defensemen, and of course it starts to drop a little bit with Komisarek being 7th, but we do take Gilroy, who ends up being top 6. And to wrap up the second round, we end up taking another defenseman. It is Pavelka. He ends up being 7th potential. Early in the third round, we get back-to-back picks once again, and we take the defenseman Auzins, who ends up being low 7th potential. But the next pick, we take a grinder with top 9 potential, Mashenko. And as promised, midway through the third round, it really starts to drop off. Back-to-back picks for the third time in the draft. Both men end up being AHL potential. Another pick in the third round, we end up taking a sniper with bottom 6 potential. Is it Parent? Is it Parent? Who knows? But he ends up being a decent pick considering some of our other choices in the third round. Early in the fourth round, we take another defenseman, Giroux. He ends up being AHL potential. And with the 16th pick in the fourth round, we take a goalie. It is Hunt, but he ends up being low backup potential. 22nd pick of the fourth round, and we take a sniper with low bottom 6 forward potential. It is Landeskog. But that'll do it for the pick-by-pick breakdown. Let's get you a look at the big board because there were a lot more picks to go, and we want to keep this episode flowing. So now you know the names to look out for when we move on here to the re-sign phase, which will not take too long. We will actually do that live, but a very up and down and inconsistent draft, but we did get some players that might be able to help us in the future and might be able to crack this roster, or will at least be somewhat valuable. But the re-sign phase, Thatcher Demko, is obviously our number 1 priority. He had a pretty strong offseason. We will see if he accepts $3 million dead even. Ty Edmonds, who will still most likely be our backup next season, is asking for a very, very friendly deal there, so that is nice. Hunt, who is someone that we just drafted, ends up being pretty low in overall. Defensively, Stetcher in 87, Triamkin in 87. We have to resign Frankie Corrado, which we will do. He is asking for more money than he is worth. We'll see if he accepts $375. That is a pretty big contract. Bernat Valiev's gone up in overall. You have not played an NHL game and you are asking for that much money. That is interesting. We have to resign Peters as well. We will give him another 3-year deal. Looks like he will accept it. So why not? We'll keep him around. Is that it for the defense? No, it is not. Logan Stanley needs an entry-level deal. We should have the contract spots. I'll offer him an entry-level deal. I know he's only 7th D. Same with Phillips here, being low 6th. But you never know. Cal Fleury also needs a deal. Okay, we might get into a little bit of cap or a little bit of roster space issues here if we don't play this safe. Eric Cornell needs to be re-signed. He might not make it to the full roster. He did not have the greatest season. Luke unfortunately has dropped to AHL potential. We'll have to let him go. Patrick Laine only up to a 74 overall. Unfortunately, what seemed like an amazing set of draft picks at the time between him and Puljujärvi look like they might be a bust, just because, of course, this game is not the most realistic. Bykov, you know what, I'll sign him. If we have to trade people away, we will, because, of course, I'm simply trying to get to the point where we can sign certain people. Drake Caggiula needs a new contract, and honestly, maybe I should send Peter Cehlarik here. He's an RFA, so I'm just going to qualify him. That will certainly open up a spot, and if we have any centers that we can do that with, we will go ahead and do that, with the exception of Austin Matthews. Of course, we will look to re-sign him outright, but we need to make sure that we have these contract spots up. Austin Matthews looking for $6 million. That's not too bad. I was almost expecting more. We have a couple of UFAs that we need to sign. So yeah, this is going to get a little bit tricky with some of these contracts. I actually should have scouted this out a little bit better, because I did not realize that we were going to have this many deals. Hopefully the people that decline these offers here are the RFAs, so we can simply tender them and move on. But the first batch of signings, Valiev accepts Corrado, Demko, Caggiula, Peters, Phillips, Cornell. Nobody declining thus far. Knock on wood. Hopefully it stays that way. Austin Matthews is back, so it looks like we're good for the moment, although this loading screen is taking quite a while. Holy shit. Carlson accepts the RFA deal, so that is fine by me. Why is this simulating so much? What is even happening? Stop it. And for some reason, it skipped right to the start of free agency. Like, am I mistaken? I could have sworn I hit advanced day, not skipped to the start of free agency. Well, before we take a look at the big fish signings, obviously we'll have to take a look at our contracts right now. And, okay, so we have space. I just hope that I don't end up seeing somebody on the free agent list that shouldn't be there, because it didn't let us re-sign them. That is very, very interesting. But moving forward, we do have 2 RFAs left that are unsigned, but let's check this free agent list. Please, somebody, how did they all re-sign? Again, we miss out. All 3. Oh my god. All 3 of them. All 3 of them re-signed with their teams, and again, we are fucking left holding the bags with no big defenseman to sign. Now, attempting to rebound from the fact that we were once again, I don't want to say screwed over, but that we were once again disappointed, we're going to have to make some moves. Timpano, Naveau, and Logan Stanley, who we just signed, have been sent to the Bruins for a 2nd, 4th, and a 6th. Yes, I know the Bruins are likely to finish in a playoff spot, but we have to take what we can get at this point. Timpano's going because there is potentially a good free agent goalie, elite potential goalie, that we could get our hands on here, along with the guys that we already have. And that man's name is 21-year-old Tom McEachern, who is already an 80 overall, so who knows what kind of progress we will see from him, but we will look to sign him. Actually, we don't even need to sign. We're going to try to sign him to the max contract just to make sure that we get him. Interesting enough as well, too, Sergei Bobrovsky is a free agent. He is only 30 years old, but I do think we're going to go with Demko and hope that maybe McEachern can turn into that goalie we need, because I honestly don't think we could sign Sergei Bobrovsky. And look, there are some decent players we could potentially get our hands on if we make some moves now to free up the cap space. Pacioretty would be a great signing. Nyquist or Jeff Skinner would be a great signing. I'm not going to do that. We're going to move now straight ahead to the preseason. We're going to take a look at player progression, and then we're going to advance from there. The good news is Tom McEachern has accepted. Peter Cehlarik, who is an RFA, has accepted. Steven Shanahan, another prospect from free agency, has accepted our offer. And our last move will be to offer our last restricted free agent his contract. I believe we have space, and we do. Our last RFA, I completely forget who it is that has yet to sign. Let's take a look. Who is it? It is Sarela from down in Utica. Calgary apparently interested. Calgary can suck a dick because we are absolutely re-signing him. I don't care what kind of compensation we would get for him. We are absolutely re-signing him. I don't give a shit about the player morale. Sarela, please resign so I can move on. Calgary has sent him an offer sheet. I'm absolutely matching the offer. We are re-signing him. Fuck Calgary. Let's go to the preseason. So here we go. Looking at the progression of our team. Thatcher Demko is still an 85, as is Ty Edmonds. Down in Utica, things are looking good with Werner and McEachran both being an 81 overall. Raymakers also up to a 76, so we have quite the good goalie situation. Defensively, it's looking good. It's looking pretty good. Maybe we don't need to go out and get one of those big fish defensemen. We have Stetcher and Tramkin both at 87. Parayko and now Renat Valiev at an 85. Chychrun's up to an 84. We have Tanev and Corrado at 84s. And then Madison Bowie. So Valiev and Chychrun are absolutely on this team. Maybe Valiev, despite being in a top 4 role, I don't know what to do. We need one of those type of defensemen so bad. I'm definitely going to take a look here in a second. In Utica, things are looking all right in terms of potential guys, and Peters is now up to an 80 overall, so that should be a good season of progression for him. And as far as the forward core goes, things are looking pretty well, and we're going to have to cycle people out. Saru is up to an 85 overall. Lindholm now up to an 89. Castle's an 87. So we had some pretty damn good progression from certain players to the point where we have had to put certain people down in Utica, including Cornell, Honkanen, and Sarela, all 83s. So we definitely have to shift some players around at this point. So to me, there is no doubt that Adam Werner will be a decent goaltender for us in the future. And of course, Hunt, who we just drafted, will probably turn into a legitimate backup. But we need to stock up on picks at the moment for trade value. That is where Columbus comes in. They need some goalie depth. They give up a second and third in this year's draft. Of course, I will show you why I did that once we go to best lines. We go over to free agency, and there is another free agent goaltender who has been on my radar for a while. He is still there, and that would be Nick McBride, who could very well turn into a legitimate player. And as well, Sergei Bobrovsky is still there. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Our next trade, although I hate to do it, is sending Chris Tanev and a third-round pick that we got from Columbus this year to Colorado for their first-round pick in the upcoming draft. Tanev is a little bit more expensive than Frankie Corrado at the moment. So if we can't find a trade for a defenseman right now, the defense is shaping up to be Tramkin, Stetcher, Parayko, Chychrun, Valiev, and Frankie Corrado, because Madison Bowie is going next. And it didn't take long. Madison Bowie to the Montreal Canadiens, who have turned out to be one of my favorite trading partners apparently, for New York's second-round pick this year and a fourth and a sixth this upcoming draft. I know this is a dangerous move, strengthening the Anaheim Ducks, but really, are we strengthening them that much? Anton Slapishev and a third-round pick, our third-round pick, in the upcoming draft to Anaheim for their first-round pick this season. I have no problem making this deal whatsoever, and it frees up a little bit more cap space. We have one more trade to make with the Blue Jackets. That is sending Honkanen and Cornell to Columbus because Sarela beats them out in my depth chart. They are going for a second, third, and a fourth, all in next year's draft. We've made another trade sending Cal, Fleury, and Phillips, who is actually low top 6 potential, 2 guys we just signed. We are sending them to Montreal for a second and third this season. And screw it, one more deal with Montreal. We also send Rocky Kaura, who has fallen to 7D potential, to Montreal for their third round pick next year. More trades as we send Cirelli to Columbus. Of course, we're limited to the similar trade partners because of the amount of contracts they have. We also send 4 guys we just drafted with AHL potential to Columbus for more draft picks. Another trade, this time with Colorado, as we cycle out more AHL potential guys, and Ludwig Elvenes to Colorado for their 2nd round pick this year. I don't care what the feedback is to this trade. Yeah, I probably could have tacked on a little bit more. Don't care. And you know why I don't care? That's because we're doing another trade with the Avalanche. This time, Jesse Gabriel is the gem of that. We're sending away more people with AHL potential to Colorado for a 2nd and a handful of 3rd round picks. Another trade with the Ducks as we send Carlson and more prospects to them for their next 2 2nd round picks. And our last trade, and this is a tough one to make, but we send Patrick Laine to the Blue Jackets for their 2nd round pick in 2022. So after all of those trades, here is what the roster looks like for the upcoming season. We're going to keep Drouin with Matthews and Stamkos. 2nd line, Kajula, McCann, and Lindholm. Lindholm, still a 1st line forward. Incredible growth there. VC, Castles, and Jake Virtanen. Sarela, Horvat, and Jordan Saru. As the 4th line, defensively, it's Tramkin, Stetcher, Chychrun, Parayko, Valiev with Frankie Corrado. And of course, the goaltending remains the same. It's Demko and Edmonds. But in the AHL is where that myriad of trades comes through. We have McEachran and McBride as our goaltenders for the upcoming season. Raymakers is still there just in case. But where those trades come through were to simply get our top prospects into Utica to get them as much playing time as possible. Mishenko, Karpatsev, Carlson, all guys I believe that we just drafted. All of these guys are now going to be getting as much playing time as possible. Velarde, although he was elite potential at the time, is now in. Kavanaugh is in. Milan Krejci is in. This is all about, all of those trades were about getting these guys proper playing time in Utica. Same with Pavelka, Nicolishin, Gilroy. It's all about getting these guys as much time to progress as possible. And as far as all of those trades go, it's for the same reason you would expect it to be. We have to hope that between Anaheim, Colorado, or even ourselves, that somebody sucks this year, because I am absolutely not making the same mistake. When we get closer to the trade deadline, if one of those picks' values skyrockets, we are making a trade. I don't care if it costs 5 first-round picks. We need that top defender for Chychrun to be able to pair up with for when he is ready, and I am willing to get that defender at all costs, because once we have him, we have the offense, then maybe we get a new goaltender if Demko isn't panning out, but we have to make these moves. We've been just burned by this twice in terms of counting on free agency. We're going to do what we have to do. Unfortunately, Sergei Bobrovsky has been signed by Chicago. Otherwise, I'd go get him right now. But guys, that is the game plan for this season, is to make that big trade for a defenseman whenever we can. But in the meantime, we do have still a solid and competitive roster, and I'll be very interested to see how Season 5 pans out. That is it for this episode. If you've enjoyed, make sure to drop a like down below. Of course, it helps out the channel, and I would really appreciate it. Subscribe for more to continue following this series as we move forward into Season 5, and I will see you in the next episode as that journey begins. How will this team do? Can we get that defenseman? All questions that I want answered as soon as possible.